Name me one AI song.
Or
Name me one AI movie.
none that I can think of present.
Exactly. And look, it's not there yet.
I think that's one of the biggest conversations at the moment that people are kind of worried about, which is, does AI hamper creativity in the sense that it's becoming a little bit robotic, identikit? Or does it actually allow you to just scale quickly?
Yes, there is the creative element of AI just making things, but at the moment it's still prompted by you. So you're still bringing a creative element. And then second of all, again, it comes back to you being armed with AI and executing your job as opposed to you doing it without it. Life is an accumulation of the moments that happen to you, and AI is never going to replace that, right? I think it was inevitable that another AI power would rise, and there's more to come, right? Like, the funny thing about this is that it's so much faster than everything else that everyone is used to.
Hi everyone, this episode is brought to you by Beehive, the UAE's first regulated peer-to-peer lending platform, revolutionizing the way businesses access funding. At Beehive, they connect thriving small and medium-sized businesses with investors, creating opportunities for businesses to grow and for investors to earn attractive returns. It's fast, digital, and accessible. Whether you're a business owner seeking funding or an investor ready to explore new opportunities, Beehive makes it simple, secure, and transparent. Want to learn more? Check out the link in the description below or visit beehive.ae to see how Beehive can work for you. Please remember that all investments involve risk and returns are not guaranteed.
Beehive P2P Limited is regulated by the DFSA and is Sharia Review Bureau certified.
Welcome to Below the Fold. Today's a very special edition episode. I'm your host, Andreas Frangeskides. You might have seen me on a previous episode. I'm a marketing technologist here in Dubai. And I'm joined today by a very special guest of mine, Mr. Will Snow, the only Snow in Dubai, as I'd like to call it, like to say. Will is an innovator in the digital space, particularly from a strategic viewpoint. He works primarily in product design. Him and I have got lots of interesting conversations that we've had today, and I'm really excited to have you on the show today. Will, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit just for our listeners?
Yeah, Andreas, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure working with you the last few years. So nice to finally have a heart-to-heart chat and a conversation about
100%
all these things, right?
100%. And so I kind of mentioned before that you're an expert in your field. But before I go into that, I'd like to know a little bit more about you as a person, like where you came from, what do you believe in, and what brings you here today?
Yeah, I've got a fascinating journey. It's a little bit different to most, but I'm a farm boy off an ostrich farm in the middle of nowhere, deep down in South Africa. And my journey's kind of taken me obviously through basic education, getting into university, and then going from there and working across Africa. So I'm a biological science at heart. That's what kind of love anything to do with nature, really. And I just wanted nothing to do with people at that stage of my life. And what's been so incredible is like a full kind of 360 on that, where I realized there's no science without people, right? So in my day-to-day dealings, I actually really enjoy dealing with people and stakeholders, and that's actually where I get the most enjoyment in what I do. So the journey's kind of taken me to all kinds of parts of Africa. I've worked in like social economic kind of forums, bioenergy kind of projects, anything from forestry, agriculture, then into the drone space and, spatial sciences. That's kind of what I've studied. And that's also where I got my background for a lot of the data and tech is geographical information systems. So that's sort of been a very key component of really tying my journey together with technology and data all the way into product design. At the end of the day, managing and launching products.
Fascinating. Do you feel like your somewhat humble beginnings in an ostrich farm all the way to working in a Fortune 250 company now, do you feel that gives you a benefit in the working world? Do you feel like you understand people better because you've been more hands-on with nature and working with agriculture and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've got like 2 points on that. One is that nature has it's so efficient by design, right? And often what we create mimics nature. And you'll often find that that's the most like feasible, viable way of doing that. So there's a lot of things that we can pull from what's out there in the world today and replicate in things to come and things that people create now. And then second to that, let's jump into culture. Like, I think I was exposed to culture at a young age. I mean, South Africa is a very diverse demographics, which is amazing. I think South Africans, being very biased here, in particular, are very good at dealing with a lot of different nationalities. But my first job was actually, I shot out to West Africa and Sierra Leone, where I worked on a bioethanol plantation that we were growing 50,000 hectares of sugarcane. And I worked on the social compliance side of things for World Bank standards. And that was super interesting because I got taken straight out of my comfort zone, my first gig. And all of a sudden I was dealing with different cultures. And I believed very much in raw talent and raw power back then. But I quickly realized that you do have to take your shoes off and put yourself in other people's shoes. And I think learning that so early on was a real kind of benefit to me, and has kind of been a cornerstone of my career.
Amazing. Really, really captivating to hear this story. And I think I also feel kind of resonant there as well, having come from European background, and I've got very diverse understanding of different cultures. So I completely get where you come from. And I think it's a critical component of making it here in Dubai and in the UAE. So just for our listeners, I just want to quickly go through what we're going to be discussing. This is a 2-part special edition. We're going to be talking about a variety of different subjects. Don't worry, I'm not going to be testing you too much on stuff. It's more things that we talk about actually in our leisure time, things that we're passionate about. So we're going to start off with a little bit around the new golden age, a quotation from President Trump, who recently said that that's the era that we're in right now. So I'm going to capture a little bit about that. We're going to talk a bit about human creativity, something that we did talk about, Ibrahim and I, on a previous podcast, but it's something I want to get your viewpoint on. We're then going to go a little bit deeper actually around the kind of arms race, if we like to call it that way, of AI.
Aggressive.
And
Cool.
the struggle that we're facing. And then there's obviously a conversation that's going to be really interesting around the, $500 billion investment by the US government into Stargate, and
It's
also
huge. Yes.
DeepSeek, what that means for people, what that means for us. And I think there's a thing around AI for good that I think that we'd like to talk about, because I think that taps into a lot of the work that you've been doing in the social space, in the CSR space.
Absolutely.
And then we're going to end with a little bit around what I'd like to call AI altruism in this age of activation, right? A little bit around ethics. Not going to go too deep into that because I think we could be here all day, and I think that's probably one of the most controversial topic point. But I do want to touch upon it slightly, and also around any risks, basically, that we're kind of falling into, either as the future of AI or humanity. But we'll keep it casual, we'll keep it interesting, and we'll kick off right now, I think, with a little bit of a continuation from your journey. So what's been the most rewarding project that you've worked on? It doesn't have to be necessarily AI based, but something that you feel really proud of, that you'd like to talk to us about today.
Yeah, interesting. I've got so many projects I can talk about in this space. I think two in particular that really stand out for me is,
please.
One, I actually did a company where we launched security drone boxes in South Africa. We actually became a reseller for guys out of the States. It was such an interesting project to do, highly technical. What I realized, and this was obviously about, I guess, 7 years ago, going into technology is not just selling an item. Like if I sell you a pen, generally you're going to throw that pen away. With this, you actually, a docking station for a drone, you almost become like a car dealership.
Wow.
And so you thinking you're just selling a product, but in the meantime, you've got to set up the mechanics and everything else to service the product. So I think I learned a lot from kind of selling a heavy tech project. We did all right for a while. We eventually, kind of stopped it because we moved on with different parts of our lives. And then a second project, which I think is more about like teamwork and coming together. I rolled out touchscreen ordering in Africa for one of the big 250s there, fast food industry. And in that, there was just this coming together of various vendors, various team players inside the organization. And that was quite a special moment for me, having to start a year doing something so like bold. We rolled out 60% of the business in 9 months. Yeah. So it was really cool to have that experience. So I'm really proud of that piece of work. And I think obviously I learned a lot of how to do things right, which I'll take forward with me.
So that ordering piece, was that AI focused?
No, it wasn't AI focused. I mean, that was probably about 4 years ago now. So it was very much like rolling out hardware. I know you're digging for my AI project, so I've got obviously several. The one that I'm particularly proud about right now is taking about 20 million transactions, pumping them into a AI system, which we've designed to clean the information, translate different things, really map different items into the right categories, and then start building prediction models out of these. It's not personalization per se, but it's like what I call cultural personalization, because it's built for a specific country and specific areas. So it's very like geographically based. And I'm really particularly proud of how we've executed the project, and it's gone along really quickly. I can't really get into the details of it, but
No, that's
yeah.
fine. I'm curious to understand a bit more around that kind of the translation of the projects that you work on. You mentioned before that they were very nuanced to a specific market or a specific, vertical. How do you feel AI can support businesses to scale? Do you think, as a project like you've mentioned now, is it something that you can carbon copy, or is it something that really needs an understanding of business principles, speaking with people, having interviews with your customer base? Because I think that's one of the biggest conversations at the moment that people are kind of worried about, which is, does AI hamper creativity in the sense that it's becoming a little bit robotic, identikit, or does it actually allow you to just scale quickly, and just get on with it?
It's a great question, Dave. Personally, I think that it's twofold. Yeah, like I was working on a project where I had access to 20 million transactions over 3 years, whatever it was. I don't think a lot of people have that. I think AI is trained in a way, like obviously it's as good as it's whatever information was fed, but it does allow you to get through those first hurdle blocks quicker than you would if you were just doing it by yourself. I mean, let's be honest, it's an extra pair of hands. In fact, it's 10 extra pair of hands. So I think, one, it helps you get started and get going in the right direction. Sure, you're not going to hit everything like precise. At the end of the day, everything's around the customer, and you need that customer feedback to really perfect your products and get moving. So if you're going to ignore the customer and carry on with things, it's not going to happen. AI paired up with what you're doing and thinking, you're probably going to get there a lot quicker than somebody that's not doing it.
I think it's also, that makes a lot of sense. I think there is a transformative power.
Yeah.
I think that helps people, especially if you don't have knowledge or if you don't have a specific educational background or skill set to help drive a project forward. But I do worry sometimes that I think that maybe it is kind of replacing the need for manpower, the need for human beings. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, let's talk about the creativity piece that you're bringing on. Like, we all know Midjourney's out there. There's loads of other platforms that create creative. If you think about a person, and I know you're from the marketing space, so this is really your topic, but I would have like really gotten a fright when I first started seeing these images come out, especially to the accuracy of what Midjourney was doing. But also then working in a Fortune 250, I have had the ability to see a advert being made and being made by people that are very passionate about a brand. And I don't think AI is quite there yet. If I put my sneaker out or my shirt or my brand, I'm pretty sure that any generated content is going to have something that needs tweaking around it. So really, yes, there is the creative element of AI just making things, but at the moment it's still prompted by you. So you're still bringing a creative element. And then second of all, again, it comes back to you being armed with AI and executing your job as opposed to you doing it without it. So I think, like you said, the speed's gone up. I think there's still a lot of opportunity for creatives, but they do need to embrace what's happening.
I'm going to get a little bit philosophical on you.
Go for it. Go for it.
Roland Barthes, who's a philosopher, he said in an article that he wrote, essay they call them, that there's the death of the author, basically a premise that contemporary thinking is purely just a hallucination or a recapitalization of what somebody else has already previously said. So there's no such thing as a new thought. In this AI golden age that we're in now, do you worry then that as much as it's transformative, as much that it helps people, as much as there's a place for it, do you think then that it's just the AI's idea of creativity? It's their ideation, it's their origination. It's not the human being, prompt or otherwise.
Yeah. I think I've got mixed emotions about it, and I think everybody does right now, because we really, like, I love drawing, for example, but I know there's no need for my drawing anywhere else. But when I sit down, and I'm going to go a little bit more philosophical on you, when I sit down and I draw with my son on a page, there's that moment that I'm teaching him to draw. Like, it's an amazing experience for me, and I feel like life is an accumulation of the moments that happen to you, and AI is never going to replace that, right? So for you, it's really, and I'm going a little bit far away from AI. And the point is, make life the moments that you have, because at the end of the day, you're going to have all this replay of everything that you've seen and all those joyful moments. When we go to AI and you're saying, I'm just generating stuff. Yes, I do think it's going to destroy stuff. And I do think it's going to take creativity away from us. But I still believe in human beings. And I'm an optimist. You know that about me. I think human beings like things that are created by other humans.
Yeah.
And I think there's a certain value to that when you say, I drew this myself. I still look at an Instagram video of someone painting the most exquisite oil painting, and I'm just like, that is incredible. I love that.
I really like your analogy of the painter. I think the painter's come up a few times actually in Below the Fold.
Cool.
I think there's something, there's an interesting recent interview with Ben Affleck. A bit strange to go from Roland Barthes to Ben Affleck, but hey ho. Terrible Batman, but excellent director and excellent filmmaker. AI is being used in filmmaking a lot now. Okay, CGI specialists are no longer required. People are kind of, the industry's molded, it's changing, it's evolving. AI is taking over a bit more. I don't know what that means for things like creativity when it comes to winning an Oscar or an Emmy anymore. As a specialist in graphics design or digital effects, whatever it might be. But what he said was really interesting, and I just want to get your thoughts on it. And I think it kind of ties into what you're saying. As much as there is this death of the author concept that we're bringing up from the existentialist thinking, he said a true artist knows when it's done, i.e. the work is finished. So you're a painter, you're painting. You stand back and you go, Halas, it's finished. We're ready. It's going to go to the world. It's kind of the same thing about when you're, filming Good Will Hunting or whatever it might be. Do you think that is still true then? That is the end goal, the end user, the person, the human, is the person that's going to say, AI, you've done something great here. I put my prompt in. It's beautiful. But now that's it. The work is done.
I don't know. Don't you ever feel like it's like the effort that you've put in is like the reward that you kind of get out of it? Like,
yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
That's a big part for me.
It's a very human emotion, though, isn't it? It's that kind of reward.
It's very human. And I'd say to you, Dre, like, name me one AI song. Name me one AI movie.
None that I can think of present.
Exactly. And look, it's not there yet. I know it's coming.
Yeah.
And I've said in the past, I don't believe that creative's quite there yet. I know it's coming, but not right now. But my point is, you will appreciate something so much more when it is developed by another person for another person. Maybe that will change in the future. You're right. CG is changing. The jobs have probably changed. It's a lot quicker. You probably need less people, all that kind of stuff. And then look, that's the personal side of things. The other side of things is if you think about business and corporate and everything, they're building for a customer, an end user. And ultimately customers want like big explosions, it might be another Transformer movie. And they get the kick that they want out of that, and the franchise goes on. But again, like, how many Transformer movies do you love? Probably the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think like there has to be that genuine kind of piece of originality that comes into this.
Connectivity with the humankind. Yeah.
And the same thing can be said for innovation, right? Like, like inventing stuff, like everything that's been invented has been invented, right? I think a lot of things have, probably not everything. I think science is still unpacking a lot of things we don't know. But for our generation, at least, it's our job to put things together, right? Like pair this with this and this and this. And AI has made that a lot easier. So I think we've got a lot of room to explore, a lot of room to solve problems for people, and ultimately, get things that people want out there.
We're going to talk a bit later about altruism and the role of AI in supporting human, environmental, societal initiatives, which I think is critical. And I think it's something that's kind of underestablished per se. But as a segue to that, we're seeing humongous investment right now in we mentioned before the US government and what they're doing with Elon and they're coming together with OpenAI and the Stargate concept and all this, supposedly philanthropic development of where they will go, where they want to go as a superpower. I don't personally believe that they're thinking about it from a global perspective. I think they're thinking about it particularly US centric, so to speak. But do you think these investments, hyper investments in the development of what they consider to be golden age theorem, that era, is something that's actually going to support you and I? We're not American citizens.
No.
America is a hugely important element in terms of the innovation that comes out of there, trickles into our lives. But do you think it's going to affect me and you? Do you think it's going to deliver on something that's going to change our lives for the better?
It's a very big question. I think it's 500 billion that they're planning to invest.
Yeah,
I mean, that is money. Like so much money. If you could even fathom that amount. First of all, the timelines on that for me, I'm not sure how quick they're going to do this. I think there've been a lot of promises in the tech world in the past and very few have delivered. So just the rollout and the pure, like how you even place this cash and get the project executed for me will be fascinating. I tend to do agree with you. It's very like US centric. There's a lot to think about that in its own, right? Because it does mean control. And then the ethical kind of pieces do come up is like, if you control this in the golden era of AI, then what does that mean for everyone else? Is it democratized? Ultimately, I don't think it will be. And this is really, I know we're going to talk about it later, but it really is an interesting subject of how is this going to affect everybody? And I think you and I having kids, like it really raises a dilemma or red flag for us. Like, what does the future look like? But I think we'll discuss that a little bit later.
Outside, so you mentioned before Anthropic, we've got the Claude proposition. What other technologies in the AI space right now are you seeing that you're particularly interested in? It seems to me, you go on LinkedIn and there are 50 different companies posting new innovations in AI. It might be an app that serves this proposition that supports you, doing that better. It might be a brand new GPT that's built upon another one. Like, what are you currently playing with at the moment? What do you think is really cool?
I think something that I'm not playing with, but I think is really cool. And I'm going to jump like straight, because I've worked across a lot of sectors, but I'm going to jump straight to the health sector. And I think this is going to help a lot of people, is Nico Health. It's from Daniel and Hagelman. They are the Spotify founders. So they've gone into like literally doing a pod where they can literally, you go to basically like a clinic setup. It takes you 15 minutes to do like a full body scan.
Okay.
Of whatever's going on with your health, your biometrics, all those kind of things. And then straight afterwards, you go and see a doctor and a doctor will advise you. So just think of all these things. Like I'm one of those guys, like I've probably injured my leg. I'm not going to go see a doctor. And 2 weeks later, I need to go see a physio to sort it out. But this is going to become so much quicker, so much easier for everyone, because everyone thinks it's an absolute hack to get out and go and do these things. Imagine these things, whether they like, remote, they can move around. They can go to places that we probably don't have the healthcare that we need. And people can go like really just check themselves out, get that kind of just a base reading. Oh, my blood sugar is low. Maybe I should be doing this. Oh, I'm on my way to being a diabetic. These are like real life problems, right? And I think that sort of kind of company bringing that almost instant gratification to the health sector, I think that's going to make like a big difference. So that's like one of my, like the more interesting kind of pieces that I'm busy researching at the moment.
Okay, interesting. So what we're kind of saying is that we're seeing a slow transformation from AI for profit to AI for good, hopefully.
I think like, look, all businesses are in it to make cash. There's probably, from an AI perspective, what I've seen on the good side has been mostly monitoring and data crunching, making things more efficient of what we have. Like we still haven't seen a lot of things where AI is actually making a difference to climate change actively, right? Why don't we have cleaner air? Why don't we have cleaner water? Why haven't we solved world hunger? Like it's quite probably with AI now, it's probably very achievable to actually completely end hunger in the world by making the logistics easier, by growing things quicker. I mean, the agri space has come so far. The funny thing is, and probably a lot of listeners don't know this, but agriculture probably tests things quicker than any other industry because they're out very remote. So often they've had driverless tractors and combines for years. They've been using satellite imagery for years. They've been using different spectrums of light to see if plants are growing quicker or worse for years. Making the sprays more adaptable, making plants grow faster, bigger, healthier. So for me, it's always interesting to watch that sector, see what they do, and then see how we can solve these things. But coming back to the point is, how is AI like really helping us? Like, I would love to see like a shift from filling the wallets of shareholders and yeah, whoever the investors, to like, hey, how can we move away from that and actually how can we actually help mankind? And I think that element behind like the corporate social responsibility piece, or just even your own ethics, I think that needs to come into play a bit quicker for me.
We'll talk a bit more about that in part 2. But what I wanted to end part 1 on was just a little bit of a connection to what you've just said there. However, young people today, coming out of school, coming out of university, that have entrepreneurial spirit, can leverage AI, build an app, build a proposition, make some money in their pocket. So
absolutely,
I agree with you, and we'll talk about it in part 2, that there's a much bigger play for AI and stuff that we don't talk about, but it does support the generation of income and a new digital economy that previously was only accessible to a minute few that had the skill set of how to code, how to build stuff in the tech space.
Correct. I would ask you, like, where have you seen AI in a school system yet? You know, like, I'm sure it's starting to roll out. I'm sure kids I know at home, they're definitely talking to, you know, ChatGPT if they're interested in something, parents will probably be like, yeah, ask ChatGPT. I think the school frameworks globally have a lot to change. I think they're still very traditional in a sense that they are built for the Industrial Revolution, getting workers into factories. So I do agree with you. I think it's going to enable a whole generation. It's going to be very different. I honestly don't think I learned the right things at school in terms of like, you know, being financially savvy, you know, doing your tax returns or whatever it might be. But I feel like this generation that's going into school now, they're going to be equipped with whatever they need. And it's going to be very interesting for them because they're not going into factories. You know, the automation kind of pieces has come and gone. And their jobs and their livelihoods and what that looks like, I mean, it's very far from what we are probably doing today. What that looks like, I have no idea. But yeah, I still love that human connection, right? Like I said earlier, like just teaching your kid how to draw something and having that moment. That's quite an important piece for me. Yeah.
Thanks, Will. We'll be back in a short while, just after this little break, and look forward to talking to you more in part 2. For all our listeners out there, please make sure that you subscribe and follow at Below the Fold podcast. It's a given to say that the more you subscribe, the bigger we become, and the more interesting guests like Will that we can bring on the show and drive it forward. So thanks, guys.
Great. Thanks, Trey. Hit the follow, guys.